Daily Words of God.
Although God's wrath is hidden and unknown to man, it tolerates no offense. God's treatment of the whole of foolish and ignorant humanity is primarily based on mercy and tolerance. His wrath, on the other hand, is concealed in the vast majority of time and of things. It is unknown to man. As a result, it is difficult for man to see God display his wrath, and it is also difficult to understand his wrath. As such, man makes light of God's wrath. When man faces God's final work and step of tolerating and forgiving man, that is, when God's final instance of mercy and his final warning reach them, if they still use the same methods to oppose God and do not make any effort to repent, mend their ways, or accept his mercy, God will no longer bestow his tolerance and patience upon them. To the contrary, it is at this time that God will retract his mercy. Following this, he will only send forth his wrath. He can express his wrath in different ways, just as he can use different methods to punish and destroy people. God's use of fire to destroy the city of Sodom is his swiftest method of utterly annihilating a humanity or a thing. Burning the people of Sodom destroyed more than their physical bodies. It destroyed the entirety of their spirits, their souls, and their bodies, ensuring that the people inside this city would cease to exist in both the material world and the world invisible to man. This is one way in which God reveals and expresses his wrath. This manner of revelation and expression is one aspect of the substance of God's wrath, just as it is naturally also a revelation of the substance of God's righteous disposition. When God sends forth his wrath, he ceases to reveal any mercy or loving kindness, nor does he display any more of his tolerance or patience. There is no person, thing, or reason that can persuade him to continue to be patient, to give his mercy again, to bestow his tolerance once more. In place of these things, without a moment's hesitation, God will send forth his wrath and majesty, do what he desires, and he will do these things in a swift and clean manner, in accordance to his own wishes. This is the way in which God sends forth his wrath and majesty, which man must not offend, and it is also an expression of one aspect of his righteous disposition. When people witness God showing worry and love toward man, they are unable to detect his wrath, see his majesty, or feel his intolerance to offense. These things have always led people to believe that God's righteous disposition is one solely of mercy, tolerance, and love. However, when one sees God destroy a city or detest a humanity, his wrath in the destruction of man and his majesty allow people to glimpse the other side of his righteous disposition. This is God's intolerance to offense. God's disposition that tolerates no offense surpasses the imagination of any created being. And among the non-created beings, none is capable of interfering with it or affecting it. Even more so, it cannot be impersonated or imitated. Thus, this aspect of God's disposition is the one that humanity should know the most. Only God Himself has this kind of disposition, and only God Himself is possessed of this kind of disposition. God is possessed of this kind of righteous disposition because He detests wickedness, darkness, rebelliousness, and Satan's evil acts, corrupting and devouring mankind, because He detests all acts of sin in opposition to Him, and because of His holy and undefiled substance. It is because of this that He will not suffer any of the created or non-created beings to openly oppose or contest Him. Even an individual that He had once shown mercy to or selected need only provoke His disposition and transgress His principle of patience and tolerance, and He will release and reveal His righteous disposition without the least bit of mercy or hesitation, a disposition that tolerates no offense.
Humanity should know foremost of a disposition only held by God, that is to tolerate no offense. None can interfere. Affected, it surpasses the fancy of all. Can be impersonated, can be imitated.